Hi Quinn, I'm going to make a little video to kind of help you get started on this activity. I don't want you to be intimidated by the websites. The worksheet itself kind of looks intimidating with the directions, but hopefully with the video it might make a little more sense on how to do it. So what I was thinking is we can break this activity into two parts, and you can separate it by a day if you want to, or if you feel really good about it, you can keep going. It'll be entirely up to you. But really the first part of the assignment is collecting information and kind of learning about stuff. So part one is this page here. And then part two are online games. So if you feel like you want to separate it, that's totally fine. But I want to talk about part one because that seems to be where you might be getting tripped up the most. So when you look at this table, again, it looks a little busy. But what I want you to notice is, again, it's all information pieces. So the first link is actually a video, and it's on YouTube right here. And it's just introducing you to the electromagnetic spectrum, which is ultimately light. We have visible light in there, but it also includes radio waves, microwaves, X-rays, gamma rays, and it all depends on how big the wavelength is of the wave at that point on the spectrum, which is kind of like a ruler, if you put it that way. You have smaller inches towards the beginning, and you have larger or more inches in between as you keep going. So that's kind of how it's laid out. So the video itself, when you start, is about 5 minutes long. It goes by pretty quick, but it tells you what the electromagnetic spectrum is. So that way when you start the websites where you're clicking on stuff, it's not super foreign right away. So once you're done watching that, you'll notice that there are two other links, and each one are little helpful tutorial links to help you fill out the table. So the first link, that's a part of the tutorial, both of those will go with right here, this table here. And if I were to click on them, this would be the first one that would pop up for the tutorial, and this is showing you the spectrum itself. Now this one kind of goes in a goofy direction. Usually we start with radio waves on the left side, but nonetheless it goes in the same order. So when we look at the electromagnetic spectrum, it's going to talk about radiation, and we have radio waves that span about right here. It won't let me click on radio waves, but I can click on radar. And that's going to be the point for filling out the table. So once I get to radar, I can click on that. And it brings up information. So it tells me what radar is. What do we use it for? And that's ultimately what I want filled out on the table. Because when you do the games, a lot of the games are going to talk about what is the technology used for? Is it bad for us? Things like that. And then the wavelength is actually down here. So you'll notice if I hover over radar, it's in between 1 and 0.1, and then you'll see centimeters. So I could go back into this and say, okay, well, radar is 1 to 0.1 centimeters. And the wavelength will get smaller as you get down to gamma rays. And then what is it used for? You read about that when it popped up, so you fill that in. And then is it dangerous? That's going to go on the other tutorial, but the other tutorial also gives us more technology information too. So it's okay if you are looking at this piece here and you're not getting all the answers because the other one fills in those blanks. So next I clicked on microwaves, and it gives me information on microwaves along with an example. And then I can fill in my table according to that, and you keep making your way through. And then if you notice, there's the visible light that kind of gets bigger down here along with infrared. And then infrared has thermal and near. And then you get into the visible light spectrum, which is the light we see, anything that's part of the rainbow. And then you go to ultraviolet, X-rays, gamma rays. So that's the first one. And then the second link goes into this one. So this one goes in the order that you're going to see most often, where it actually starts with radio waves to the left side, and it goes to gamma on the right side. And then it actually shows you kind of the wavelengths. So radio waves have really long wavelengths. They're kind of boring. And then when you get to gamma, it looks like a big old zigzag. And that's because the wavelength gets super small. And then you can click on these if you want. So let's say I wanted to click on gamma and load it. It'll give me pictures and stuff, and then it also gives me information down here. Or if you want to scroll and read, it's totally up to you because the information is also below and it goes in order. And then that way you can fill in the information on your table that way as well. So that's what those two websites are for. Really, they're just giving you information to fill out this table. And then there's questions here. And the questions themselves can be found in your textbook. However, the speed part is part of one of the websites, and it's also in the video. But it'll be in your chapter for the week 16 reading piece. So just refer back to that if you get stuck, because there is a question on if electromagnetic waves need a medium, meaning do they need air or atoms to help them move. Then the different, why don't waves of the EMR spectrum have different speeds? So they all move at the speed of light. And things like that. What determines the energy of them? And then when you're done with this piece, if you want to take a break, that's totally fine. If you want to put off the quizzes or the games until the next day or later, that's totally fine too. The first two games are actually, they are Jeopardy. I couldn't think of the word Jeopardy games, ultimately. It's actually called Rags to Riches because we can't use Jeopardy when it comes to that. Now, if you don't have Flash Player, so I loaded the first one. If you don't have Flash Player, you can always play this HTML version here. And then that way it loads like this. And I know we talked about Firefox being an issue in the plugins, and that's why I figured HTML would probably be best for you. So when you do this, you'll see kind of where you're at, and then it'll ask you questions. So electromagnetic waves travel, and they travel at the speed of light, which is this 300,000 one. So if I click on that, it tells me, yep, I got it right. So now I'm going to the 300. And then what type of electromagnetic wave is used in a radar gun? So we can go through and click on those. So that one would be radio waves. And again, we can look back through here. Radar waves that we use are in the radio spectrum along with kind of in the microwave spectrum. But we actually don't use microwaves for that. So it'll be a radio wave. And then you keep making your way up until you get to 1,000,000. Now, if you get stuck on a question, you can always email me about it. I can help walk you through a question if it's continually making you go back, because as soon as you answer wrong, it'll say, sorry, game over, and we play again. Okay? So we'll do that. And then the second game is another Rag to Riches game, and it talks more about technology. And then the other one, this third one here, I'll show you quick. Is going to be a matching game. So it has right here, and then you match what goes to what. So if it's wrong, it'll be red, and if it's right, it'll be green. So used in radar, we know that one because we did on the other one. Oh, this one's saying microwaves this time. There we go. So that's kind of the overlap in radar. That one doesn't start you over though, so it's kind of nice. You just have to click separate ones. So again, the radar goes in microwaves and radio waves. So we can use them for both. Usually it depends on the type of radar. If we're using it for radar guns, say for like policemen, or if we're using it for sonar or something like that, they're going to use different waves depending on what we ultimately want to look at. So don't worry if you get any of these wrong. Again, if you get red, then you just have to unclick them and then match them until they're green. Okay? So I hope this helps a little bit, especially with these websites, because I don't want you to be overwhelmed just by looking at the Word document. And then that way you know kind of how to use the websites. And then again, the whole goal is to fill out this table right here and then fill out these questions, because this entire page right here is what you'll use for your games to help get through the games. All right, so email me if you have any questions, and then we can always meet if we need to as well.